Hello, everybody. Welcome to a breaking news edition of UGA Sports Live. My name is Rodney DeBolsey. I'm joined by managing editor Anthony Dasher of UGAsports.com. Our quiet Easter Sunday was changed dramatically when Adam Friedman, our national beat writer, reached out to Jed May and told him, hey, Georgia's got 3 recruits. Georgia's got 3 commits. And we knew that Georgia was in a good place for these guys. We knew they wanted Josh Horton out of Miami. They were originally going to take Cedric Smith out of Alabama and A&M. And then Josh Horton of Miami gets into the portal, and Georgia's like, oh, well, okay. Let's talk to him and see what's going on. You knew they wanted Elo Medozi out of Army. And Josh McCray, I wasn't sure what was going to happen there, but as Dash pointed out in his story, once Branson Robinson transferred, Georgia was looking for another running back. Yeah. I wasn't up to speed as much as Dash is because he's got a better fingers on the pulse of the Bulldog staff than I do. But Dash was dead on there. So Dash, this is a monumental Easter, and again Sunday, monumental April day for the Georgia Bulldogs because they had 3 needs. Well, they still have needs, but they addressed 3 right off the bat. This was impressive.
Yeah, no doubt about it, especially at edge. I mean, that was the one position, we've talked about that, a lot since the season was over. I mean, with Chad Chambliss moving on and, Damon Wilson going to Missouri, that was, that left that spot pretty bare. Gabe Harris, he's got some experience, but he wasn't able to practice at all, this spring coming off his shoulder surgery, and Quintavious Johnson, who got all the talent in the world, but a guy who is not has not really, had much experience yet. So, getting a guy like Magoli is, I think it's huge. I mean, you're talking about a guy who came to Army as a wide receiver. He was like about 190 pounds, and then he started getting bigger, and then he said, "Hey, you mind if I change positions?" And that's what he did, and wound up being he's like 6'3", 235 pounds. Was one of the top of his position, in the portal. And you're getting a guy who's disciplined, which is what Kirby Smart, wants from a player. So I think he's going to be a great fit. Not just schematically, physically. I think he's going to fit in like a glove. He's from St. Augustine, so he's familiar, with the SEC. So that's a great pickup. And then, getting the running back today, Josh McCray was another big pickup. Yeah, as soon as Branson went in the portal, you kind of figured, hey, Georgia's going to have to find some depth somewhere because to be honest, I don't think they can really depend on Roderick Robinson yet until he shows he can stay healthy, which he has not done in his 2 years at Georgia. So I need to go out and find another quality back, and McCray certainly qualifies, as that. So. A huge pickup there, and the pickup of Josh Horton. To me, his is kind of like McLeod from last year, coming over from South Carolina. Hasn't got a ton of experience, but he's a big body. He was in a very good system. Georgia was familiar with him. They recruited him. I believe he was out of Langston Hughes High School. Had an offer from UGA, so he was a player that the Georgia coaches knows all about. So. Bringing him in is going to certainly help the depth because, defensive linemen are like, potato chips with Kirby Smart. Man, you can't have just one. You got to collect those suckers. So you got another big body guy to slide in there with to get some reps for the upcoming fall.
Yeah, I want to go back to Elo that you're talking about. I spoke to Charles Grievous of our Army site. Fantastic site. They cover Army like nobody else. He has 2 boys who went through the academy. One's out of the military, one's still a colonel. So he brooks no bullshit. When he said Elo is really good, he's like, look, there's a bunch of kids that went into the portal from Army because when you go to the Army, you're on scholarship, but you get nothing. There is no NIL.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to do one of their podcasts just to kind of talk about the state of college football because it's really new to all the NIL stuff. But he said, there's a bunch of them that went in there, but there's only one top player, and this guy is legit. I mean, you're right. He's now 6'3", 245. Mm-hmm. You look him up in the Rivals database. No, we didn't screw that up. He did come out as a wide receiver. He got much bigger. And we're going to bring on Dane Young as well to kind of jump in. Dane, we were just talking about the trifecta that Georgia picked up. And there's a lot of comments, asking about Bo Atkinson out of UNC. He's set from, what did our guy tell us here? He's going to visit Ohio State tomorrow, then South Carolina on Tuesday or Wednesday, and then he'll make a decision later in the week. So Bo Atkinson is still in the mix for those asking. That doesn't mean that Georgia's out of the running there. But if I know Georgia, and this is not a shot against Bo, he's obviously one of the better players at UNC. It was a big deal when he came out. Georgia likes speed. They like speed on the edge. They need edge. If they could get both, they would. I don't know that they'll be able to get Elo and Bo, but give me a guy who played wide receiver. Just like, hey, Quintavious Johnson, 33. This is a guy who played running back, played quarterback. They put him on the edge. I mean, you go back to athletes like Charles Grant, Adam Anderson. There's guys who are just freak athletes. They put on the edge. Michael Williams, and they say, go make a play. We started to see that with Chris Cole as a freshman, the way he flashed. So I'm with you, Dash. He's got 2 years of eligibility. I'm excited about him. What's your thoughts, Dane?
With Elo, is this a situation where this a fall camp with Kirby Smart counts as his service hours? For the academy, like it's kind of similar, isn't it?
It's war. So.
These are depth pieces to me at this point. I tend to think that anyone transferring in college football, maybe Nico aside, is a depth piece. Like no one's going to be building their roster around any of these guys at this point, unless there's an injury or something crazy happening. But that's not to say that they won't be important. When I saw Josh McCray come through, I immediately thought, well, if he got that many carries under Brett Bielema, that's someone that can definitely play at Georgia. I mean, that's one of the stronger rushing offenses in the country. And I always think back to this, Roddy, where it seemed like by the end of last season, Georgia was pretty much playing 3 running backs in the rotation with Etienne and Frazier and Cass Jones. I know others got carries, and some of that was because of the Robinsons' injuries. But then I was thinking, all right, Georgia's going into the season, even after the Branson transfer, with 5 guys I think they feel pretty good about. So I was, in one way, a bit surprised that Georgia was going portal hunting for a running back. But then I also always remember that Georgia had a roster with Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, Todd Gurley, and Keith Marshall, and Brendan Douglas had to start a game at Missouri.
Yeah. I wish you'd been there when Dash and I broke the story that Todd Gurley was going to be suspended. And then we got on a plane with no service. We were like walking down the gangway. We're like, oh, by the way, Todd Gurley's suspended. And then
might I add, Brendan Douglas was incredible in that game. He was great for Georgia.
Was, maybe.
But you just always hear you can't have enough running backs, and it seems like, especially with what the SEC schedule has become, and some of the holes with Georgia's offensive line depth, perhaps that this is at least experience depth, that getting another running back in the room, especially one of this size. The only thing, and I mean, Dash, you may know more than I do. The only thing I wondered is this some kind of insurance, at least for Roger Robinson's injury, but definitely if he were to consider a portal something himself.
Well, kind of talked about that a little before you came on. I think it's got more to do with Roderick's history of injuries. I mean, he's been at Georgia for 2 years now. It's not proven yet that he can stay healthy, and there's still some question about whether or not he can. And you look how big that McCray is. He's, 6'1" or so, 235 pounds. That's roughly the same size as Roderick. So it definitely looks like they're kind of, if not mixing the matches or maybe preparing to fill a need. But they think this guy can come in and play. I mean, he has had some success. At Illinois, he's had some success in the bowl game this past year. So he's a good player, a good pickup. To be quite honest with you, I wasn't sure they'd be able to go in and find somebody as proven to be effective as McCray is. So that was a very, very good pickup for Coach Smart.
Hey, Cheez-It Bowl MVP where he ran roughshod over South Carolina, 114 yards. I mean, he looks like an SEC back in these places. And again, it's a bowl game. I'm not going to read too much into it. But what was South Carolina's bailiwick last year? That defense. You know? And he lined up, and I mean, he's that body lean, the way he's running through people, the speed he has getting through the hole. I mean, he looks like, I'm not trying to generalize it, but he looks like a Georgia running back. He doesn't look like some Big Ten, Pac-12 guy who's, just about getting to the edge and running around people. He runs with power. He runs with that forward lean, good stiff arm. Those thighs just keep churning. I'm like, yeah, Josh Crawford can work with that. Josh Crawford would be fine with that, And then the question we saw earlier, are these hole fillers, depth pieces? Absolutely. And that's not discounting anybody. Sometimes the way Dane says it may sound like he's putting them down, but he's not. Dane's got a good point.
No, I mean, you're not building your team around Josh McCray. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is ensuring.
I mean, hell, Trevor Etienne. That was a guy you needed him. He came in and he was your lead back. So it's not like there's a ton to learn at running back, So I think this is a guy who can come in but Nate Frazier is your guy. Gabe Harris is your guy. Quintavious Johnson is your guy. Elo is your other guy. And Georgia likes to run that, a couple of guys standing up. And we see that it seemed like every player on the team got hurt last year. You can't have enough, and you're super thin at defensive end. You can't have enough guys out there, an outside linebacker. Can't have enough running backs, as you guys point out. And give me an extra defensive lineman. Xavier McLeod had one hell of a spring game. He kind of came on last year, and I think that we're going to be talking about McLeod a lot. And if Josh Horton out of Miami comes on and all of a sudden, I'm with you. I don't expect him to – he played 5 games last year. Was it 5 or 4, Dash?
It was 5. He was hurt a little bit too, so that's part of the reason.
It was the same, like you said, you pointed in your opening remarks there, that was very similar to the McLeod thing where he only played a couple games at South Carolina before he transferred. But it wasn't until the end of the season that you really saw him coming on. So if, you get in that playoff run and you can plug a guy like that in there and he can spell Christian Miller or something like that. Sure. And hey, the kid played at Langston Hughes. Give me any lineman out of Langston Hughes, offense or defense.
I mean, if you hear Kirby Smart, though, he would have preferred the guys on Georgia's roster to have stayed and not have created these holes.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have Damon Wilson going to Missouri, okay, that's someone that you need to fill that spot. When you have Jaw Jarrett transfer out of the program, need to fill that spot. When you have Branson Robinson go in the portal, need to fill that spot. And I think that's what all of this is. That's what the portal typically is for Georgia. On occasions, yeah, you get someone like a Trevor Etienne that becomes a team leader within 3 months. But typically, these are filler pieces that you end up needing throughout the course of a season. But I think ultimately Georgia would have preferred those 3 guys to have stayed. They didn't, so this is the answer.
I still think quietly, though, there would have been some concern about Branson staying healthy. Again, kind of same thing with Roderick. They have not really proven they can. So that's something, you would never, ever hear Kirby Smart admit publicly. But I bet you quietly, there was some concern about that.
I will say this, and I won't give away, sources and procedures or whatever, but I will tell you that guys who have been in that situation before, multiple injuries, or, guys who've been in a disciplinarian issue or had a discipline problem, the coaches are brutally honest about what they see as your future playing time. It is not, here's the best case scenario, and that's what we're, I know everyone thinks that you're just going to tell these kids what they want to hear to keep them. If they don't think that a kid can contribute or a kid can stay healthy, they will say, hey, we love you. We want, you can be here, but we don't see a lot of playing time for you. You remember who they said that to last? They told that to Stetson Bennett. And again, it was just, you didn't think you were going to have a bunch of quarterbacks hurt. So you thought you brought in the transfer from Wake Forest. You thought you had one, and they told him, well, he wants a lot of playing time. And sometimes you can stick around. But a lot of times it doesn't behoove you to stick around. So I think, I'm not saying that that's what they said to Branson Robinson, but I'm sure it was, here is an honest assessment of the sheer amount. You've been here, 3 years? You've played 2 games. And we've got some really good guys coming behind you. You see Bo Walker out there. You see Nate. You see
Peanut.
Yeah. You see how fast he is. And So again, I just want to give the coaches credit because I'll make fun of them or rip on them for other things, but the primrose path or something, they don't lead kids down that. They're honest, and the kids will tell you they're like, "Hey, I'm leaving. I have no ill will. You know, I want to achieve my dreams. If I'll do that somewhere else, that's it." Now, the Damon Wilson thing, and it ticks me off in a situation like that where the kid's like, I like this special play. I like to be the edge, the guy rushing the passer. And I think y'all are going to let Chris Cole do that more than you're going to let me do it. So I'm going somewhere else. Dude, I'm not saying he said that. I think that might have been his camp. But I'm like, you know the play calls. So just I hate when kids put words in the coach's mouth or don't take them honestly when they're sometimes brutally honest.
The one player that I've thought in recent years, Roddy, that got the reputation for being injured often and came through on the other side of that. And there's many examples of this, but Arian Smith is the most recent one where it seemed like he wasn't going to play for Georgia. And
he was a joke
look
to a
at
lot
him
of
last
people.
year. Yeah.
So no.
I think the difference is, and I think Dash is right about this, that running back room, there's just not going to be a ton of carries to be spread around those 5-6 guys, especially when Cash is one of the better offensive playmakers, that he's going to get his share of that as well. And so when you have that honest conversation with Branson of like, look, you already have to overcome this and then also overcome the depth. Arian Smith probably didn't have as hard of a time with that at wide receiver because of so much turnover at that position for Georgia.
But he also, remember, he had something that nobody else in that group had. He's like, I've got a skill set that no one else can duplicate. There's not a running back that's like, I am elite beyond words compared to anybody else. Now, when Trevor Etienne came in, I was told Georgia doesn't have a guy like him. So that was part of it, And we didn't know that Nate Frazier was going to be Nate Frazier. But I'm with you there. Lose him. And I hate that Damon's gone, and you expect the other guys to transfer. But if I'm Elo and I'm Bo Atkinson at UNC and I'm looking at Georgia, I'm like, you've got 2 outside linebackers with a combined 15 seconds of playing time. I hate that Gabe missed spring, but if I'm Elo, I'm like, man, I know I was at Army, but I had 6.5 sacks. I had a lot of tackles. I can play there because it is a wide open path to get on the field at Georgia right now at outside linebacker. Am I wrong?
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
Just my thought.
Roddy, are you seeing direct ties here from assistants to any of these guys? Like I instantly think of the state of Florida with James Coley, but this is not South Florida. This is St. Augustine with Elo. So I'm trying in my head to put some of these assistant coaches as some of these guys where the crossover have been, because a lot of times in recent transfers, it's been teams that Georgia has seen in person. It's been that Dom Lovett had a great game for Missouri against Georgia. We've seen a couple of examples of that, but that's not the case with these 3 guys.
Well, Georgia offered Horton, and Trey Scott, I believe, was the one that offered him back in high school. So there was that connection with him. Now, the other 2 guys, not so much. I mean, I actually just, was looking back and, McCray did not have an offer from Georgia, high school. Now, I'm sure they saw him being he's from Enterprise, Alabama. I'm sure they had probably come across him at the camp somewhere. Heck, he may be even a camp here. I don't know. But, being there, he's, it's from, close to the area, so to speak. They probably knew of him, but otherwise, Horton would have been the only one that they actually, I think, really, really knew to that kind of extent.
And that's when, again, I'm not trying to crap on these guys, but it's a situation where this is the second transfer portal. You've had a little bit of a shakeout after the first go around. You've gone through spring and seen what you have, what you're missing. So even though you love, and Kirby will say, we either want to have recruited against him or recruited him or played against him so that we've seen him. Like you said, that familiarity, some sort of connection, something to vouch for him. And when you watch Josh McCray run, you're like, okay, again, hadn't started 2 games, but has put up good numbers, was leading rusher. It's like, okay. But you're not bringing him in, as you say, to be the number 1 guy. He's not coming in to be QB1 or RB1, hey, you're RB2, RB3. You know, you're OLB2, OLB3. So you don't have to have those pre-existing relationships because you know, you're you're a little desperate and you're a little you're not bringing in a you hope he's a starter, but it's not incumbent upon him to be so. Definitely not with Josh Horton. You give him some time. So
Well,
that's my
in
take.
transfers, Kirby talked about how he looks for stability and more of the things. So Horton is one. It sounds like that they've known before, but even just looking at the other two, it's obvious with Elo. Like, look, if you go to Army and you do all the things you have to do to be
Yeah.
an athlete at Army at the same time, like
Jesus.
you're a professional human. Like you're not going to come in and kind of be a turd in the punch bowl at UGA. And then Josh McCray, I'm reading on his bio here at Illinois. One, you haven't seen him transfer around a lot. He's been stable there for 4 years, and he's graduating next month with a degree from Illinois, which is a great school. So if you start looking at maybe some of these intangibles, that who are the guys that can come in and actually fit? Ben Urosic was some of this for Georgia, and you saw some of the speed bumps early on for him. But by the end of the season, it seemed like he definitely fit with the roster. How do you bring in humans that aren't going to disrupt everything you're trying to do over the course of a summer? It looks like that they've vetted some of that here with these guys.
Yeah. Joe McCray, his freshman year, he had 549 yards on 112 carries. Only played in 4 games as a sophomore because he got hurt. Only played in 5 games as a redshirt sophomore. He got hurt again. Junior, he played all 13 games with the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl MVP for 13 rushes, only 13, 114 yards, 2 touchdowns, beat number 14 South Carolina. I know we hated that. Had 3 rushing touchdowns, win over Michigan State. He's pretty, like you said, seems legit. I like him, and I'm with you on Elo. I have a boy in the ROTC program at UNG. They do not brook fools. They absolutely do not brook fools at West Point. It's even tougher to get there, and that is a guy who's going to come in with his head will be square on his shoulders. His pins will be exactly 1/8 inch apart on his chest. This is a guy who will be detail oriented, and you're right. They don't want to screw up the locker room. So there will be some big names out there. You'll see them. And I don't know that there have been a few that were like, Georgia can afford this kid. Georgia could go all in and get him. But Georgia ain't going to touch him, you know. So Kirby is he lives in the intangibles, even though he measures everything to the nth degree. They have as much data points, as many data points as they can get, but they also worry, about the locker room, the leadership, the connection. And I know a lot of times it sounds like coach speak, but he's been there. He knows if they don't have that connection, they don't have that those intangibles, they won't win. So I'm with you, Dane. These kids look pretty good. So.
Well, and like Kirby Smart's probably also fielding calls from guys that were on Georgia's team last year. They're in the portal. I was reading earlier that 4 teams that are still looking for a quarterback, which there aren't many, but the ones that are, Jaden Rashad is still in the portal out there and likely going to start for someone this year. So Kirby's probably getting calls from coaches. Hey, what was it like having Rashada in your program? And, that's a guy that maybe goes and starts somewhere. He would have been 3rd string at best at Georgia. So I just that's where we're at this time of year, and all the coaches tell you that they need to reroute the calendar so you don't even have this cycle at this point. But I don't know if that's going to change soon.
Yeah, Ty 1214 says the Georgia still looking at a quarterback here. Have you seen any good ones in the portal?
That's the thing. Georgia wasn't considered a quarterback. As we all know. I mean, they were trying to get Melendez from Cal, and what's the guy's name from Charlotte? Having a brain, can't remember his name. Right now.
I know who you're talking about.
They wound up going to Wake Forest. Anyway, I mean, it's going to have to be a specific fit. I mean, because if you're a really, really, really good quarterback, I just don't see you wanting to come to Georgia unless you're guaranteed. Deshaun Purdy, that's right.
Deshaun Purdy.
Thank you. It's going to be very difficult to bring in somebody because most of these guys are going to come in wanting to start. and I don't think that's going to be in the cards, right now. So, I don't know. It won't surprise me for them to get a quarterback, but it's going to have to be a special fit. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, it's tough to come in. Hey, I want to be the third guy. So that's why.
I also think Georgia feels pretty good about its scout team quarterbacks from whatever Coulter Ginn, Hezekiah that came from Clark Central. Like if you're going against a mobile quarterback and you need him to be in practice the scout team guy, like he's fully capable of that. He's a great athlete. Now, either of those guys ever going to start at Georgia, I highly doubt it. But in terms of just operations and practice, I think Georgia.
But you can't say no because your last walk on got you a couple titles. So. But you're right. Hezekiah Milner, I'm telling you, people rave about Hezzy. So I'm not discounting it. I'm with you. Hopefully they get Jared Curtis, and then it's a non-issue. I think that kid is ridiculously special. So.
As much as we're talking about these three guys at Georgia got, and we should, that's the new guys on the roster. As much of the story is at this point, and look, if something changes, then I'll eat these words. But Georgia has kept its roster together pretty darn well, considering the talent that it has and the playing time issues that some of the younger guys can have. And I know Kirby says that it's a young team, and a lot of guys will play even younger. But I mean, look, we hear rumblings from players after a season. Like most of the roster kind of talks around, looks around, sees if the grass is greener on the other side. And Georgia, I thought, did a pretty darn good job of retention with this roster. Maybe one or two that happened in the last cycle, but so far this time, it seems like it's been on Georgia's terms and not surprises against Georgia.
Yeah, and most of the kids that went to the portal were guys that were looking to play for more playing time, which means they're not getting enough here, which means somebody's ahead of them. So it's not the guy you want to lose. Now, do you want to keep him? Absolutely, because you recruited him. You think he's one of the best in the nation. He's probably one of your top 44 players. You hate to lose a guy like that, but it does happen. They also kept a lot of walk-ons that we thought were going to be jettisoned as Georgia tries to get down to the 105 limit. There's a number of guys who we fully expect to see their name in the portal. Hell, they told us they're going to the portal, or somebody in their family did. And then all of a sudden it didn't happen because Georgia got a nice NIL deal put together for him. So if you're some of those people who give to the Classic City Collective or have hired these guys to do stuff, the rest of the Georgia fans should thank you and say, hey, we appreciate you keeping the Cash Joneses of the world around, keeping the Jeremy Bells of the world around, keeping these talented players, Dan Jacksons of the world around. So you're right. The portal didn't sting him nearly as bad as it could have. And again, I think Dash wrote a whole story about the fact that Kirby's looking for guys who want to play. George can go all in on some of the high-priced talent that's out there, but some of that high-priced talent's coming with a big head. And, I mean, you could be – Georgia fans can't make fun of the Nico situation in light of Carson Beck. Those are stones you cannot throw in your glass house. This is you have one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. He transferred to Miami. Not a great situation, but you don't want a situation like the whole Nico thing to pop up, right at the end. So Georgia ducked out of the Juju Lewis sweepstakes early on. They're like, this is too big a headache. There have been numerous other couple wide receivers I know of that they're like, no, I got to get into that. And I get that you want to do that with certain ones because you got to have those 5-star difference makers, but you can't do it with every crazy kid who is just dying to get his hands on a Lambo. So,
yeah, I mean, we don't have a massive sample size for how to win a national championship in the transfer portal era, but it does seem like in the last 2 years, it is targeted transfers at specific spots where you're weak, but mostly retaining your guys as long as possible. And that's really not as much from transfer as much as it is going NFL early. Ohio State had a lot of guys on that roster that could have been in the NFL last season. Same with Michigan the year before. Georgia has totally been – I mean, Dalen Everett right now could be an NFL player. and he's coming back to Georgia for another season. So that seems to be, and I say all that, and then Ohio State had a transfer quarterback last year. I get it, but it's the targeted spots. We haven't seen a team like Ole Miss that comes in and changes half the roster year to year, at least go deep into a playoff at this point. It'll happen eventually, but I don't think we've seen that yet.
Yeah, I think you do go in all in on a Caleb Downs here and there. You go
Sure.
go get a Trevor Etienne. You're right. You got to get.
I mean, if Jeremiah Smith was looking around, Georgia ought to have been on it, but like he's getting probably paid more than coordinators there.
I'd be sending him a stream of hookers, prostitute, strippers, coke, whatever he needs. Jeremiah, but he kid should just go straight to the NFL. I said this on the dog vent. I think the NFL is one extra lawsuit away from not being able to have a 3-year ban. I know that the Players Association agreed to it, and the NFL likes it, but I think somebody's going to say, "Look, you're preventing me from making a living," and they're going to challenge it. And I'm not saying Jeremiah Smith will, but I think that lawsuit is going to happen again. Was it Maurice Claret? Claret was the last guy to do it. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember the last guy that.
I always think of it in terms of like how many people are actually ready to make that step before 3 years out of high school, and it's so few. Yeah,
but my point is, what you're seeing is that guys say, "Look," and the NFL will say, "Look, you can make millions in college," and they're going to say, "Well, if I'm capable of making millions in college, then I'm capable of making millions in the NFL," and I'm ready to play there. So I'm just saying that's going to fall. It is a different world, as you're saying, and that different world came in bright detail tonight as Georgia picked up 3 transfer. Dash, how much do you think these guys put this together on their visit?
What's that now? Say it one more time.
How much do you think these guys decided all to announce within the next? It's like, hey, let's all announce 8 o'clock on Easter.
Zero, absolutely zero. This is orchestrated. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Glad I got my eggs picked up, so we had a chance to get a story out. But yeah, that was orchestrated. You're not gonna be able to convince me otherwise on that.
Is not what I was expecting tonight. I was about to sit down and start editing our stories that are going to run tomorrow morning, and I feel bad for poor Jed May. He's with Kate. He gets information from Adam Friedman. We could break the news to everybody that these 3 guys are transferred to Georgia, and for some reason he can't get a hold of us because his reception is crap. She's right next to him. Her phone works fine. He's like, I can just see him banging away on his phone going, damn it, why won't my text go through? So, nothing like being a recruiting guy with scoop and no cell reception. It's all.
Who's the most high impact transfer that Georgia's had in this new era of college football?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I mean, Trevor Etienne's up there.
Yeah, he was big. And I would say Cager, but that was not exactly during that wasn't during NIL transfer though. That was transfer.
Yeah.
Was it Kendrick from Clemson came in and had a very good career?
That's probably
the answer there. In the Orange Bowl. I mean, he had a big impact.
I love that he wins MVP Orange Bowl, and Kirby is freaking out that the media is going to get to talk to him.
He did fine.
Wait, Roddy,
didn't want to ask him any uncomfortable questions. I'm like, can't you celebrate this, Kirby, instead of being freaked out that the media is going to talk to this guy? I mean, he was focused on that. So,
Roddy, you had the right answer earlier. It's
here's a good one. Javon Weems.
No, it's Stetson Bennett. You were right the whole time.
Yeah.
Because that was a transfer back, technically.
Darren Kendrick. I think everybody. Colby Young this year. I like it. Tie 12-14. I will say, if Ra could have not gotten in trouble, the word from inside the Georgia camp before this season started was back after summer. They're like, this Colby Young guy from Miami is going to be a monster, and Ra is going to have a crazy season. That's who they were expecting to be their top 2 wide receivers.
We might be talking this way though about Zachariah Branch, so I'm pretty sold on that young man. He's going to give Georgia.
Give me
some
his
things
freshman year, not a sophomore year. I agree.
Yeah.
Ooh, a good one, Tyke Smith.
Yeah, Tyke. I mean, people forget he was a transfer, but that's exactly right.
Well, it's because he came in. He tear his ACL or something?
Yeah, he was hurt pretty quickly in his career, but man, he came on as now solid contributor in that Bucks secondary now.
I mean,
I feel better about
NFL
Branch.
and start.
I feel better about Branch than I did Rah Rah. I never bought into the Rah Rah hype, Roddy. That's if you're a wide receiver for Mike Leach and you can't get receptions like that. That had red flags to me at the beginning. I saw talent, but I just didn't see like top end receiver. And I know you're saying sources inside the building were hyping him up, and I'm sure he was doing fine in practice, but I didn't see it with him. I'm not sold on Colby Young yet either, frankly.
I think you're wrong on both. I think they're both elite, but what do I know?
Hey, as long as the check comes in, I'll keep saying the things.
And nice. Hey, everyone had their opinion, even if it's wrong. All right, and with that, guys, we're going to wrap it up. We've been talking about 35 minutes, but anyway, the news was Georgia winds up getting 3 big additions out of the transfer portal. Josh Horton out of Miami, Elo Mendoza out of Army, the defensive end, and Josh McCray. 2 Joshes. Josh McCray, the leading running back for the Illinois last year. All 3 now Georgia Bulldogs. They should be here next month. A lot of these schools are. I mean, I think my son's only got 2 weeks of school left. A lot of them are ending first, second week of May. So those guys.
Next week is the last full week of classes at UGA. Monday, a week from tomorrow, is the final day of the actual classes, and then you have finals.
So I think that's why they have that. That's why they have that second transfer portal when they do. These kids can find a new place and then be there for summer workouts. So hopefully we'll start to hear about some of these guys in the. Well, put it this way: stay tuned to UGA Sports, because last year we were telling you before anybody else, hey, this mid-year enrollee, this kid Nate Frazier from California. We're hearing crazy things about him. Like, hey, what about Nate Phillips? What about Chauncey Bowens? I'm like, I'm just telling you, the name I'm hearing is Nate Frazier. So, anyway, hopefully one of these names will pop up this coming summer. Until then, or just stay tuned until through the summer, and maybe Dash can. I guess Dash, next time we get to talk to Kirby is what, media days?
Media days, I would assume. Well, no, I will see him down in Destin for the spring meeting.
Okay. You'll see him in May and at the SEC meeting. All right. Anyway, folks, that's all the time we have for tonight. We will talk to y'all later. Y'all take care.